But we have Brad Henderson, who's a captain with the Sheriff's Department now, has been there 22 years. I didn't think he was that old. Okay, and then we have Jim Napolitano that has been, he'd be right now with Montgomery Chief of Police. These two candidates will be the ones debating tonight. And we are very honored to have a candidate for Harris County Sheriff here, Carl Whitley. He's more than just a candidate. He has been in law enforcement since since a child. He's a businessman, he's an author, he's a constitutional conservative, he's an all-around good guy. I think Harris County is really lucky to have a candidate like him, and I think we'll be pleased with his moderation. So Carl, if you'd like to, you can go ahead and get started. Our timer is going to be Julie Bond down here, so if she cuts him off, we'll hear a beep, buzzer, and go get the hook.
Good evening, everyone. Can everybody hear me okay?
Leave it on.
Yes? No?
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Is that good?
That's better.
Outstanding. We've got questions here, and I think we're going to go with 3 minutes. We will alternate the questions between the candidates. The candidate answering the question will have 3 minutes to answer the question. The other candidate will have 2 minutes for rebuttal. And if we need to go back to the original person, they also have 2 minutes for rebuttal. Fair enough? Both sides understand it? Good, good. Good deal. Other than that, that's pretty simple. I don't have much to say about me tonight because I'm not running for sheriff in Montgomery County. So I am sure that I've just met both of these gentlemen this evening, so I do not know either of them. So I do not have a, as they say, a dog in the hunt. But hopefully one of these gentlemen will be a very good sheriff for Montgomery County. So if you gentlemen are ready, please take the hot seat. Please. Yes. All right, I think the best thing that we can do is everybody really wants to know, and this is a question that both of you will get to answer, and it's Jim, correct? Yes, sir. First name? Rand. Jim and Rand. Jim, tell the audience why you want to be sheriff and why you feel you're best qualified to be sheriff.
Thank you. First, I want to say thank you to the Tea Party and to Pat and all the other people from the Tea Party here in Montgomery County for putting this together. It was very, very great of you to finally get us out here. Why do I want to be the sheriff of Montgomery County? I feel that my 33 years in law enforcement, that I've been trained by some of the best, I've worked with some of the best, and I have the experience from that training and from the missions that we've completed to do the job of sheriff, to get that information out to the young men and women that are here at the sheriff's office, to give them ownership of their job and to get out there and to do the things that are right for the county. I think that sometimes in the past we've forgotten that we're public servants, that we actually serve the public, that our job is to be that person that you call that you can rely on, not the person that's always telling you what to do or out there on a traffic stop. That police officer or sheriff's deputy that you encounter on a daily basis is the person that you want to stop and talk to. So I think that with my training, again I'm going to go with that, and my ability to train others, that I should be your candidate for sheriff. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Rand Henderson. I am your candidate for sheriff, and I am currently employed with the sheriff's office. I'm a patrol captain. I'd like to also start with thanking the Tea Party for hosting this forum tonight. and especially to Pat, who's always been gracious, and I got my first invitation to the Tea Party from Pat. And also to you, Mr. Moderator, for being here and taking time out of your busy campaign schedule for doing so. I have always wanted to be in law enforcement. I knew at a very young age what it would, that I knew I was going to be in uniform. There's just something about this job. I always wanted to be the good guy whenever we were playing cops and robbers when I was a kid. My beautiful wife, Christine, is here tonight, and I appreciate her being here. We left our 10 and 12-year-old children, Riley and Reed, at home. I'm afraid Reed is going to follow in Daddy's footsteps. He looks a lot like me, and I see him being in a uniform as well. There's a picture of me when I was a kid, whenever I was about 5 years old. I was wearing a Palestinian police uniform. My dad actually took me to the police office there, and I got a patch. My grandmother started on that uniform. So he's kind of following in Dad's footsteps in that respect. I've been with the Sheriff's Office since 1994. I put a first uniform on before that, though, when I worked at the Walls Unit in downtown Huntsville. Most college kids, they wait tables when they're in school. I chose to take a full-time job, so it took me just a little bit longer to get out of school, but it was worth every minute of it because I got the experience at a very young age and learned what the criminal element was like, and the worst of the worst, because at the Walls Unit, that's where you do the executions. So as a 20-year-old kid, I was working executions, working security for that, and saw them carried out as well. Then I came to work for the Sheriff's Office. I started as a patrolman after completing the police academy that summer after graduation from Sam Houston. And I've been here ever since. I patrolled these very streets. And as I look around the room, it kind of reminds me of a little story whenever I was involved in an incident with a barricaded subject with a hostage, actually 2 hostages, and we got fired at. Got rounds fired at us just right down the road over here. And I see a couple of my backups that were here. You know, my only backup that I had that day came from an off-duty deputy that chose to get back in his car and come help me out. We work shorthanded at the Sheriff's Office. We don't ever have all the resources that we need, but we're working hard to cooperate with the elected officials and give us the resources that our patrolmen need to stay safe, to go home after every shift, and go see their families when it's all over with. Rest assured, we're working hard to keep you safe every day and every night. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen. Why is the office of the sheriff considered a constitutional office? And we'll start with you.
According to the Code of Criminal Procedures here for the state of Texas, it's considered the highest law enforcement position in the county. And since that is the highest law enforcement position in the county, that it obey, understand the Constitution of the United States, and also to relay that information back to its deputies so that they understand it. And the sheriff should also help out with the police departments and all the other law enforcement agencies, the constable's office, to relay the information that we obey the Fourth Amendment, the First, the Second, the Third, and all the way through, that the Constitution of the United States is the law of the land, and that we will enforce it. And we will also make sure that no one comes down and infringes on our rights to those constitutional amendments that we have written in the Constitution. So I think that the sheriff itself, he is in charge, or she, whoever that might be, and they take pride in enforcing the Constitution of the United States. That's it.
And any rebuttal? Do you agree?
Sure, I think it could be better explained. It's the Sheriff's Office goes back to the old days in England. It's based in English common law. So it's one of the oldest offices going back to Europe before the United States was ever even born. There's one sheriff for every county, 254 counties in the state. We all run the jail. We're mentioned in the Constitution of Texas, and we're also in the CCP as stated as being the conservator of the peace. So it's a very important position. We not only handle the jail, but we also handle all the unincorporated areas of the county for the patrol functions. And that's extremely important because we're the ones that are looking out for you in your homes and places of business if you don't reside within a city. The Constitution is extremely important. I'm a firm believer in the 10th Amendment and states' rights. I'm also a firm believer in the Second Amendment and your right to keep and bear arms, and I promise to always protect that because that was part of my oath, was to protect and serve the Constitution, to defend each of you every day. That's the job that I do now: preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So as sheriff, I plan to continue to carry out that oath, continue to work hard for you in that respect every day. Thank you.
All right. Specifically, the authority and the creation of the office of sheriff in Texas, it is from a specific article and section in the Texas Constitution. Man, can you tell me where you derive your authority from within the Constitution of the state of Texas?
I apologize, I do not have that memorized. I'm not able to give you this specific statute. But I can easily flip to the Code of Criminal Procedure, the Constitution, and one of the laws, the web resources, and easily answer that question. Or as Jim said, using his phone.
Jim, would you chime in and give us a response to that question?
You know, actually, before I was coming here, I had said to my wife, what happens if Brandon and I have the same answer? How would you say that? So that one, I would have to look up also and refer back to the Constitution. That's very specific, but I wasn't ready for that specific of a question.
All right, well, so everyone knows it's Article 5, Section 23 of the state constitution. Okay, let's get down to the specifics. And we got the first question last, right? So we're going to come back to Jim. Jim, what would your very first day as sheriff of Montgomery County look like? What would you do? The first things you'd do?
What would be the first things I would do? Well, first we would get sworn in. And then after that, I would head over to the office. And much like I did at the city of Montgomery, there was lots of stories that when I started as the new chief of police in the city of Montgomery, I was going to come in and fire everyone. Everybody goes. And it's not true. I mean, that's the most ridiculous statement. The first day would be meeting with all the employees, as many as I could, to talk to them, to find out what they do on a daily basis, to see how the machine runs. That doesn't mean the machine's going to stop running because there's a new sheriff, because it'd be like saying that the United States of America was going to stop because we have a new president. So far from it, we're going to come in, we're going to talk to all the people that work there, get an idea of what they do, ask them for a quick resume, get their thoughts on how the sheriff's department's running, what would they do differently, and listen to what they have to say. We would then work through the next few weeks on how would we restructure the command staff, who would come in and do what. So it would be business as usual, except we would be talking to all the people that everyone from the deputy down on the street, out to meet the district sergeants, out to meet the sergeants in the jail, and the ladies and gentlemen that are working in the jail, to the people that are out there working on the maintenance on the cars and taking care of all the other things that the sheriff's department does on a daily basis, training division. We would be looking at how they're accomplishing their mission. And is that mission where we want to go? Is that mission, can we improve on it? Can we do anything? And everyone always says, well, how are we going to improve on it? Well, we're going to look at it, and we may take a different course of action. But that doesn't mean anyone's going anywhere. That just means that we're going to start looking for answers. I don't want to ever hear that that's the way we've always done it, because that's the wrong answer. The answer is, how can we get the mission done? How can we complete the job? And how can we make it easier for the deputies to get out there and do their job with the equipment and the time and the things that they need? It seems like a pretty good answer. We'll just go in and just fire everybody, but that's not the answer. General Patton didn't do that when he took over in Germany. He looked at who was running the show and said that we need to get these people up off their feet and get them running. So what's what we're going to do? We're going to look at what we need to do to continue the good work they're doing now, but how do we improve on that? How do we make it better? How do we give the citizens of Montgomery County what they're paying for? And you guys are paying for it every day. We all pay taxes. I used to love to hear that one when I was a Secret Service agent. Well, I pay your taxes. Well, so do I. I was filing the tax report, and I guarantee you that the IRS was looking at mine a whole lot more than they were looking at yours. So we're going to do the best we can on that first day to understand what the job is, how to get it done, and how we can improve on it.
Well, the advantage I have is I already know what's going on at the Sheriff's Office. I've been there for 21 years. November will be my anniversary. I've worked in virtually every division and every department within the Sheriff's Office. I already know the people, and I'll have advanced training before I go in there to know, who I'm going to be surrounded with and who I'm going to be surrounding myself with. So that's extremely important that I'm already hitting the ground running before day one. I already know, as Major Matthews put it, one of my college professors, he said it's really important on day one to know where the bathroom is. I already know where the bathroom is. The department is running well. The department can be improved. There are a lot of things that I want to do differently. The sheriff's been reelected. This is his third term. So obviously the people of Montgomery County are very satisfied with the job that he has done. So I don't think a total overhaul is necessary, but I do believe there are great opportunities for advances in efficiency and effectiveness within the Sheriff's Office. Some of those ideas involve community policing, which is something that we subscribe to in the Woodlands but have a difficult time applying in the rest of the county. And it's something I'd like to see generalized. So after I develop my staff, begin to work with them, there is no firing all the employees of the Sheriff's Office. We're a county civil service department. The employees of Montgomery County have a Fifth Amendment right to their job. They have a property right to that job. It can't be violated unless you're violating their civil rights. So I plan to work with the staff that's there. Plan to make a lot of changes with staff, but it's going to be positive, and it's going to make the department even more efficient and effective than it's ever been. And I look forward to the opportunity to do it so January 1st, 2017. Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen. Rand, this will be for you, I think, first question. The people of Montgomery County feel there aren't enough police officers to answer the calls for service they are currently inundated with. Do you have a solution? And if so, what is it?
I agree. The sheriff's offices across the state are staffed to be a rural service department. Look around Montgomery County and tell me one area that's rural. There's not very many, and they're in the far corners of the county. So we're funded as if we're a rural department. However, we are wholly a suburban and in places an urban department. The Woodlands is very well staffed, and the reason they're staffed is because the people of the Woodlands have chosen to enter into a contract with the Sheriff's Office to enhance their law enforcement services. There are county employees that are in the Woodlands contract, but they're supplemented with employees that are paid for by the Woodlands assessments. The rest of the county is woefully understaffed. Even though I got my budget request for 25 new deputies last year, it took almost the entire time to get those filled. We've got them on the street. But when you're looking at a patrol force that's outside of the Woodlands, sitting around 145, and you divide that out with the population that we have within Montgomery County, we're a long ways away from where we need to be. So the answer to that is I have partners. I look forward to working with my partners, Rowdy Hayden, who is the Precinct 4 Constable, my partner Brian Gable, who is the Precinct 3 Constable here in South County. And I'm looking for other partners. You heard a lot of candidates from Precinct 2 and Precinct 1, so I'm looking forward to having partners there too. It's a concept that I generally refer to as the force multiplier, because we are all certified peace officers. We just perform different functions. But that's not to say that the constables can't and aren't willing to jump in and help out whenever there's problems. So we plan to utilize their downtime to help assist us with our calls for service. The more calls for service that we take care of, that frees up deputies' times to do proactive work. As of now, we're a pretty reactive department. Staffing levels keep us, the radio pretty much drives us because our staffing levels just keeps us up with the status quo. Just trying to take care of those calls for service. Those aren't all crimes. Some are long in detail and involve long offense reports. Others are just service calls where people need information, people need to talk to an officer, people need advice. Those take time as well. So when we start to work with our partners, they can assist us with those. And once we have that free time, that allows us to do the proactive that you really want us doing. We'll get to your calls faster, we'll make more traffic stops, we'll be able to get more involved with the community, because we all know that the way that we solve crime is communication with the public. So the more time that we have to talk with our constituents at the line level from patrolmen, the more information they get about problems in their areas, whether that be disorder, crime issues, whatever it may be, to help them do their jobs better. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, most of you know that my background is that I started here in Montgomery County as a reserve deputy. I went to Secret Service for several years. Then I went back in the private security business and have moved on into being the chief of police. I luckily have been experienced and exposed to departments all over the country, all over the world. I understand how to do things differently, not the same way over and over again with getting the same result. I have lots of experience dealing with other and different departments. So how do we do this? How do we man a department and then get the people in the correct places? We do it by looking for, and I have several of them in the room, I look for good police officers other places. And then I hire them away from the departments they're in, because they're already trained. We can get them back on the street faster, quicker. All they need to do is learn the system and get on out there. So that's what we're going to look to do. We're going to try, this is the Houston, Galveston Metroplex, which Montgomery County is just an extension of that now. We need to understand that our competition is in Houston. Our competition for police officers, for good trained police officers, is this whole area. That if they don't like what they're doing, they can go to Conroe PD, they can go to Conroe ISD, they can hop ship in 2 seconds after we just spent a whole lot of money training them to be our police officer. So what we would like to do is get good police officers, not only look for ones that are in college and young men and women that are looking to make a career of this, but we're also looking for people that have 15 years on the job, and how do we get them on the street? So that's going to be part of our tasking. We're going to look for the right recruitment and get the officers that we're looking for on the street as quickly as possible, so we can answer these calls for service. And yeah, Carl, we're going to steal them from you right down there at Harris County as quick as we possibly can. So they get good training, we want them. If they've got good ethics, they're men and women of honor, we're going to put them to work. So thank you very much.
All right, Jim, this will be for you to begin. Do you think the currently proposed road bond is good for the Montgomery County taxpayers? Please explain your position.
Well, you know what? That's easier than said than done. Okay, let's talk about the road bond. They keep wanting to give us a $350, now we're down to $270 million road bond. But you know what? Only one county commissioner, just one, has done an engineering road study for mobility in this county. We keep hearing about the other three getting theirs done, but we haven't seen anything. So as just a plain old citizen of this county, that someday my little one-year-old daughter is going to have to pay the taxes on that road bond, I want to see some meat in the pot. And what I want to see is I want to see our county commissioners not drive around in their pickup trucks and say, well, we need a road here, and we need a road over there, and we need to pave this one. I want to see us do like Houston has done and the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, get engineers that are professional to study the mobility of this county, to take a look at what we need, and then give specific jobs for what our money is going to be put for. We're hardworking people. I mean, there's nobody in here that's in that $1 million, I can go out and buy a boat. So the point is that the citizens of this county deserve and demand that our elected officials do the right job to get us the information so that we can vote on something. Instead of the Miss Pelosi, just vote on it and then you can read it later and then we're going to have a good road bond. That doesn't hold up anymore. What we need is information. So when our county officials can give us the proper information about this road bond and what it's going to be spent on and how the money, and not hear that, we have $11 million in miscellaneous funds. I don't want to see that. I want to see good stewards of our money. I want to see a plan. As an engineer, when I first got out of college, I was a mechanical engineer. And you didn't build a tool without doing an engineering study. What is it for? So what are our roads going to be for? They're going to be for mobility. They're going to be so folks can get from their job and home to their schools with their kids. And does it affect the sheriff's office? Yeah, it does. And it affects our ability to answer calls, to get to places that we need to be without running into other cars or having car accidents on the way. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask our county officials, please be specific. give us the plan, and then let us vote on it. But just don't tell us, well, here it is, and vote on it, or you're not going to get another one. I have a lot of problems with that. So that's where I stand on the road line.
Hello? I'm a cop, not an engineer, know much about road bonds, but what I do know is that we in law enforcement drive the same roads that you do. The same traffic that you sit in, we're sitting in. There's many roads in the county that don't have a wide enough shoulder that even if it was an emergency call that we were running lights and sirens, we can't get there any faster. We're sitting in the same traffic, just waiting on traffic to clear so we can try to get to you. That's not just law enforcement, that's also EMS. That's also the fire department. They've got to get to you to be able to help you. My understanding is that a lot of these projects, if not all the projects, have been proposed for many years. I know that where I live in Willis, I've been waiting on 1097 to get built for a really, really long time. I sit in that traffic on a regular basis, and it's a nightmare, and there's huge development coming. So I'm not a believer in waiting for the problem to exist before you start to address it. The time to address it was years ago. So what I do know is that we need roads. And looking at some of the projects that are listed on there, having an interest in the entire county like I do. A lot of people don't drive all the roads in Montgomery County. They drive to their house and they drive to their work, and their work may be in Houston. But I assure you that the patrol deputies of Montgomery County, the fire and EMS of Montgomery County, drive all the roads. And we need more of them. We need to be able to travel them for safety. We had we lead the state with our traffic fatalities. So that, for the most part, is not due to lack of enforcement. That is due to terrible roads. So I think we need to move forward. This bond package has been what's presented, and I think it's a good solution for what we need moving forward.
Okay, Rand, this next one's for you again. Do you see illegal immigration as an issue in this county? And if so, how do you plan to combat it? So, how do you plan to combat it countywide?
Yeah, I believe it is an issue. It's an issue for the entire state. It's been an issue for many years. Unfortunately, we have an Attorney General's opinion that handcuffs local law enforcement. As a local law enforcement officer, we don't even have the mechanism to know if the immigrant or the person that we've come across has a legal status or not. We've been handcuffed with the ability to ask for those papers or not. We do what we can with the limited powers that we have. And one of the things that we do at the Sheriff's Office is, once you get incarcerated, we rat you out to the federal government if your status comes back as an legal resident of Montgomery County. So that information is put into a database. The offenders are identified through their fingerprints, and that information is communicated up to the federal government. They then show up and take them away. Now, that was a stronger program until just recently when it was renamed and retooled a little bit. So we're not able to deport as many as we were. The Obama administration changed the rules on that. So now if you've been convicted of a crime 3 times, yes, you're deportable. If you're in on a felony, yes, you're deportable. But we used to have a lot more leeway to be able to remove those. And this Safe Communities Act is something that the sheriff adopted as soon as he got in office, and we worked really hard and diligently to make sure that's enforced to the degree that we're able to do so. We were involved with the language and working on the migrant children that were coming to Montgomery County. There was a safe house that was located on League Line Road, and the sheriff and I immediately were able to take a tour of that facility and see what was going on with that. We learned a lot about it, and we also learned that we didn't need that in Montgomery County. Most of those it was essentially a safe house where the federal government was moving those children to where their families were located, and mostly for some reason they were in the Baltimore area. So we worked to address that and try to rectify that situation here in the county.
All right. You just recently...
Keller, will I get a chance to?
Oh, it's your turn. You got to jump on it.
Well, I'm jumping on it. So, as the chief of police of the city of Montgomery, and Montgomery's growing really fast, like the rest of the county. We get a lot of illegal aliens that come in there to do one thing and one thing only, is to work. They're coming there to work, but they're driving on our roads. They're endangering our citizens by operating motor vehicles that they don't have a driver's license for. And then sometimes they're falsifying their insurance policies. So some of my guys have been able to understand that. They look at the paperwork, and then we check it out, and guess what? It's not real either. So we charge them with both driving with no driver's license, driving without proper insurance, and then we tow their vehicle. Now, other places in Harris County, they don't do that. They let them go home. They let them drive away. And our city council has allowed us to tow those vehicles and get them off the street so that non-operating drivers won't be out there hitting you. Because as a law enforcement officer, if I let that person go down the street, and much like, unfortunately, we had a very bad car accident right in front of my neighborhood yesterday, where 4 people were killed by someone doing something illegal. It just happens to be one of our citizens. But the point is that we can't let them drive. For the safety of the children, for the safety of all of our citizens here, we need to make sure that we're addressing the illegal alien problem. How are we going to solve this here in the United States? Because the federal government's sure not doing anything for us. They're fighting us on this. So, and then with the whole situation of sanctuary cities. And I asked our state legislator the other day, I said, what are you going to do in Austin to give us some teeth to fight this problem? And he went off on another answer, which didn't really answer the question, so we didn't get an answer to that. So we're going to do our best to stop the illegal alien driving here and try to get them to obey the law as we have written. Thank you.
That one as well. The chief brings up a great point, which seems like a novel idea, but it's not. We've been addressing unlicensed drivers in Montgomery County for many years. I wrote the policy that we abide by in the standard operating procedures around 2004, 2006, something like that. I don't remember the exact date. But for many years, we've been, we don't address it as an illegal immigration problem. We treat it as a no driver's license problem. So if we pull somebody over that has no driver's license, that doesn't mean it's expired, or I had one a few years ago and it's not currently valid. If you have never had a driver's license and you are not trained to drive a vehicle, which is a deadly weapon, we decided a long time ago that it was a bad idea for you to be able to drive off. There's nothing in state law that says that I can't, but we were proactive about it, and what we do is we tow their vehicle, and they're afoot. They can call somebody to come pick them up, they can ride with their record driver, they can do whatever it is that they need to do. But they're not going to get that car back until they show that they own it and they're able to operate it away from that tow storage lot. So it more than likely won't be them. And they're going to walk away with a handful of tickets as well. So we enforce the traffic laws to the nth degree possible for your safety on the roadways. Thank you.
Okay, recently Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed the open carry legislation. Do you support it? And explain your answer.
Do I support open carry? I am currently an instructor for the state of Texas for both CHL and open carry. So I guess that could just say yes, pretty much. That's pretty simple. And I truly believe that the open carry law, we were one of the only states that did not have this. But when I do teach my class, I try to tell people, you know, I think that if you're not trained on how to retain your weapon in a holster if attacked by someone else, then you should think about keeping it concealed. And if you don't have the proper training and the proper equipment to carry that weapon in the open, like our officers do every day, Rand's and mine, that you should consider just keeping it as a concealed weapon. A lot of folks agree to that, especially when we're teaching the course. So you can carry it out in the open, but if you don't understand that, you know, as we say in the police business, is you show up at a disturbance and all of a sudden you brought a gun to what wasn't a gunfight in the beginning. So officers understand that they're bringing that weapon to the situation, and citizens need to understand that too. When they carry it in the open, that you are now responsible for not only your safety with that weapon, but other people's around you. So it's a heavy responsibility to have that open carry, and people need to understand it. So we try to teach that to folks. So that's where I stand on that.
I've always been a proponent of concealed carry. I always thought it was a great idea. The masses thought that we were going to have these road and gun battles that were going up and down the freeway whenever concealed carry was passed. Well, we found that not to be true at all. We have very little to none. The percentage that's given on a regular basis is very less than 1% of all concealed handgun carriers are ever even in trouble with the law. So that's because the permit is a way of us finding out who the good guys are. If you can pass that background check, that's a good thing. So when we pull you over, you're already identified as somebody with a weapon that is able to carry it, and you pass that background check. You're a good guy. There was some leeriness with law enforcement about open carry. I think the similar concerns were out there. When I started educating myself, and it started when I was talking to Ginger and Calvin at one meeting, they asked me, and my answer was I didn't think sufficient enough, so I did a little research and found out that the reason that most people want to openly carry is because they've got a fear of their weapon being exposed when they bend over or something like that, which would make it, you would be openly carrying when you're supposed to conceal carry. So that fixes that problem, and that's what a majority are looking for. Yes, there are going to be those that walk around looking like a policeman, open carrying, and we are going to have an increase in citizen contacts because people are going to call in. With all the theater shootings that we've had, you think if somebody walks to the front of Tinseltown, that we're not going to get 911 calls. If they've got a holstered weapon on their person and they're in a pair of shorts and a t-shirt and they don't have a badge exposed. So there's going to be some training issues we're going to have to deal with. Terry Holcomb was in this very room not long ago and gave a great presentation. Turns out his son was one of my cadets. So we're bringing Terry to the sheriff's office. So from his perspective as an open carry advocate to teach law enforcement just what we're going to be facing. And from his perspective, not just a law enforcement perspective as to just what, how we should handle this. Thank you.
I can rebut that?
Sure.
Or not rebut it, but just add my one other statement. A few weeks ago, we had Texas Law Shield come to western Montgomery County, and we put about 25 officers in a room to teach the concealed and open carry law, that how it's going to affect us as law enforcement officers. So we were able to get that out to our guys as quickly as possible. Pretty much all my officers except for one was able to attend that. And secondly, we had some folks from Constable Precinct 2 and Precinct 1 there, and the Montgomery ISD Police. So it's an issue that I think as law enforcement, we sat back going, oh, how's this going to work? I think it'll be a novelty that will go away pretty quick. But we're still going to have people that want to come into our police station, slung an AR-15 over their front and carry that in. So that's going to be an issue for us in the police department side, how we deal with those citizens and make them realize that they don't need to come in our office like that. And another issue that will affect the sheriff's office is courthouse security and how we're going to deal with people trying to open carry coming in our courthouses and getting to the magnetometer. And I think that's something that our state legislature needs to go back and readdress, that our courthouse should be a place where the deputies have weapons, control who comes and goes there, and that's it. So that's what I have to say about that.
This next question is a scenario-based question, and it's really based upon the individual sitting in the White House at the moment. The President of the United States signs an executive order requiring all long guns, rifles, and shotguns to be seized. As Sheriff of Montgomery County, what would you do? And be specific.
You remember who it is?
I'm sorry?
You remember who gets this one?
I would consider that executive order to be null and void because it's a direct violation of the Constitution. So I believe it's our responsibility as law enforcement to ensure that your Second Amendment rights are protected. So that is that's one of the tenets that Sheriff Mack has proposed, and it's something that he's brought to light. I do like Sheriff Mack's statements and what he talks about, and I think he's on the right path. He woke us up with respect to this. We never really thought about it being a possibility until we saw it was possible with some of the executive orders that have already been passed from this administration. Luckily, he's on the way out. I don't see it happening, but if it does, we're prepared. We know you have a right to keep and bear arms, and we respect that right. I'm a firm believer that gun ownership reduces crime. I want you to have guns, but more importantly, I want you to know how to use guns. So when that time comes, you use the gun on the business end for what needs to be done to take care of it, to ensure the safety, protection of your family, and others within the community. You have that right, a constitutional right, back to the beginning from our forefathers, and that shall not be violated. And I feel strongly that you should be protected, and I believe the office of the sheriff, Sheriff Mack's got it right. This is the office, the sheriff's office is the one that should protect you, because we are the constitutional office, we are the conservators of the peace, we are your local law enforcement agency in the entire county. So as the chief executive law enforcement officer of the county as sheriff, I pledge to defend your rights, your constitutional right to keep and bear arms regardless of what a hostile Obama administration may try to pull here in the future. Thank you.
Just so you know, I was a Secret Service agent, and I retired 2 weeks before Mr. Obama took office on purpose, because I was I'm an NRA lifetime member. And the only problem I see with this is that you guys are going to have to come to that Joe Corley jail that was built for us, but now the feds own it, and get me out, because that's where they're going to put me. Because I'm going to make sure that they don't come up here and take our weapons from us, ever. So, yes, I will defend your Second Amendment rights, along with Rand. We stand side by side to make sure that we don't have a problem from our federal government coming down here with an unauthorized presidential order to seize our weapons or do anything else that would violate your constitutional rights. So we're going to make sure it happens. And if I have to go sit in the jail cell, no, so be it.
Would your first budget submitted to Commissioner's Court be larger, smaller, or the same as the current budget? Explain why. Explain your answer.
Well, it's probably going to be larger because, much like Mr. Henderson just said, we need an increase in manpower here in this county to get the job done, to get it done correctly. And there's no other way to do it than to analyze the crime statistics, to look at the population growth of this county, to see where the population is growing in the unincorporated areas. But, you know, we talked about just the unincorporated areas. Well, I'm a chief of police of a small incorporated area, and there's many times my officers are running out into the unincorporated area to assist the sheriff's office, and vice versa. So, I don't look at boundaries as far as how it works. You're the sheriff of the county. You know, and there may be a Conroe Police Department here, but we're still going to assist Conroe PD or any other police department in taking care of what the crime is in our county. And unfortunately, we can't get the criminals to obey the county line either. So they come across from Harris County, they come across from Waller and everywhere else and come into Montgomery County. So we need to understand that our budget's going to have to increase. I mean, if we have 525,000 people living here already, with more to come because they're building another new hospital right down the street here, I mean, we're going to take people to man that hospital and patients and everyone else. So our budget's going to increase with the people as this county grows. So what we need to understand is, how do we do that? How do we do it properly? How do we do it where we give the best bang for the buck to our citizens? So we will have to look at it, analyze it, understand what we're doing, and go before Commissioner's Court every other Tuesday if we have to, and say, gentlemen, ladies, this is what we need to get our sheriff's department to run properly. So we could talk about, cutting budgets in certain areas where we find fluff. We need to put men and women on the street, and we need to keep deputies still in our jail. Taking the deputies out of the jail and gives it a difficult time for those civilians that are working in there, because now sometimes those inmates don't respect the civilian employees that we have as much as they do when they see that badge, when they see that uniform, and they understand, hey, that guy's a deputy, and 2 weeks from now I may encounter him on the street, so I may not give that person such a hard time. So the budget will have to be analyzed, and then once we analyze the budget, I'm sure, I'd be lying to you if I told you, oh, we're going to cut the budget 25% and we'll still be able to do the job. Unfortunately, my old agency, the Secret Service, did that, and then they ended up having problems. So we won't do that. We're going to look at it, tell it what it is, and go up before county commissioners and give them the right story. It's up to you, the folks, to understand that if you want protection, if you need a police officer there in less than 25 minutes, then you're going to have to look at getting the right amount of manpower to do this job. Thank you.
In order to address the budget, we've got a new program that's coming into the Sheriff's Office called Skillman Technologies. It's a great tool that our leadership team has been working on for many years. It's an integrated justice system. This integrated justice system is going to bring new data analysis tools to the Sheriff's Office that we've never had before. So I plan to first use that. It should be live very soon to see where we stand and what inefficiencies we can root out by directing patrol versus randomly patrolling, using that crime analysis data. But what I do pledge to you is that I will always look at the Sheriff's Office budget and try to reduce in any area that we can. The problem is that our budget is very labor intensive. So that means salaries. That's the majority of where our money goes. And with it being as big a budget it is, the largest budget in the county, most of it does come to salaries. We look always to grants when possible to try to supplement, as long as there's no strings attached that we can't stomach. And we try to enhance the budget by using other methods. But efficiencies in the budget will come out through analysis and continued analysis. I'm not a proponent of the way our budget system is laid out now, to where you got your budget, you got to try to spend it all at the last minute sometimes, because you don't want to run out, and that's something that we've never done, is have a budget overrun. So we wait till the end of the year sometime. I want to budget all year long. I want to look at where we are all year long and prepare for the next budget. And it's not a cycle that we go through where it's craziness around March. We want to have a system where the administrators, my command staff, are constantly questioned about their budget, and it's looked at to see what the true needs are and what the true needs are in the future to try to reduce our impact on the county's liability as much as possible.
Carl, can I rebut that real quick? Absolutely. Just another statement. I just want to say that I both worked in the public and private sector. I understand that, as Rand just said, this is manpower intensive. So we always want, when we dial 911, for the brightest, smartest, most trained, most effective police officer to show up at our house. Sheriff's deputy, police officer, whatever you want to call it. When it gets there, you want it to be able to solve every crime as fast as they did on CSI. Boom, they got it done right away. But you're going to have to pay for that. If you start paying salaries that are just barely breaking $40,000 a year to these young men and women, and then ask them to stay here, they're not going to stay. They're going to get their training and they're going to go someplace else. So Rand is correct. We need to understand that if we want something and we want a good product, we have to pay for it, we the citizens. So I want folks to understand, it's not that we want to increase the budget, that we want to take the money from you or come out there and do a tax increase. But the job of being the sheriff in this county, to give you the protection and the things that you need to pay our employees the right amount of salary so that we keep them here for 20 or 30 years and they're not running down the street to some department down in Houston to get a better salary so that they can support their families better. Because in the end, that's what it all comes to. Can we support our families? And the other shame that we do is we work extra jobs. And these poor guys are getting killed out here, and they're working real hard, and then they go and work another 12 hours at some extra job so they can make enough money to get by and pay their mortgages. So, folks, it all comes down to money. It matters what you want. You're the citizens. What we want to do is provide you the best we can and give you the best product we can for the money that you pay for. Thank you.
I agree, and our salaries have come a long ways. When I started, I was making $21,000 a year. I took a pay cut from TDC when I came here. Through the current leadership, we have made great strides in our pay and part of that is a salary structure. And that salary structure is intended to keep the tenured employee longevity. Do you want a rookie showing up that doesn't know anything, that has to call on the radio and ask for help just because he's new, or do you want that seasoned veteran? And I think everyone would probably answer a seasoned veteran that knows what he's doing, who's been there and done that. And that's who we want among our ranks too, all the way up and down the ranks. So we came up with this salary schedule that is intended for nothing more than longevity. Because you can see, even in difficult times, that you've got a step schedule, or a step that's coming, so you can make got a little extra money that's coming. And that maxes out at 16 years. And the advantage of that is you've also got promotions whenever that step schedule. The chief mentioned the jail, the deputies in the jail. I'm a firm believer that we made a very good move by replacing some of our highly skilled, highly paid, as far as the scale goes anyway, jail deputies with civilian detention officers. When I worked in the penitentiary, I wasn't a cop. Nobody that works with those convicted felons at the Walls Unit or any other penitentiary in the state of Texas is a cop. So there are specialized functions within the jail that being a police officer is advantageous. And so we tried to move those into those specialized positions, and we did it with your taxpayer dollars in mind. We replaced some of those deputies with lower pay, but still skilled, because we do lots of training to ensure that we got the best personnel that's working in the jail, because that's the sheriff's largest liability. And so we moved those deputies either into patrol, into bailiffs, we put them in transport, in areas where their specialized knowledge is necessary. And we're working to continue that as we move forward with our salary requests, trying to be as efficient as we can with your taxpayer dollars.
All right, gentlemen. Texas jails have become the state mental hospitals. What, if any, programs or policies will you continue, discontinue, or implement to address this growing issue?
I'm sorry, I can't keep up when we do this rebuttal thing. So, absolutely, and it's widely known that the Harris County Jail is the largest mental institution in the state of Texas. That's wrong. That's a problem. Mental health leads to recidivism, and recidivism leads to more taxpayer dollars being spent to house and feed inmates. The number fluctuates, but it's somewhere around $50 a day that you're paying to house these inmates. And a lot of them are coming in on petty crimes, and a lot of them are related to their mental illness. Some of them that are staying more longer term, we're getting an opportunity to work on their mental health. We have, when I took over as the jail captain, we were barely working with training. We were having a hard time even getting our mental health assessments done when they came into the jail. If they said that they were wanting to kill themselves, there was no mechanism available to get them off a suicide watch because there wasn't a psychiatrist on staff. So that's something we worked really hard, was to bring in mental health professionals, and we're trying to do it as efficiently as possible through telemedicine. So we're trying to video conference them in. They can see what's going on with the inmate, make the assessments. We have a doctor on site as well as a nurse, so if they're going to be there for any length of time, we can get them the prescriptions that they need. And the mental health assistance through Tri-County is now present in the jail. That wasn't there for many years, and through cooperation with Commissioner's Court, they've now been mandated to work inside the jail to assess our inmates. They had refused to do that at one time. So we've come a long ways. A lot of our mental health and medical care are paid for through the Inmate Commissary Fund. Inmate Commissary Fund is funded through a percentage of all inmate purchases that they make through commissary. So if you buy extra t-shirts, if you buy food, soups, sodas, whatever through the Inmate Commissary Fund, a percentage of that is moved into that fund that can be used for the safety and security of inmates. Well, part of the safety and security of inmate issues that we have deals with mental health. So we've been able to use those funds, which are inmate monies, not your taxpayer dollars, to try to get them the mental health and medical care that they need. And I think we've made great strides, but we still got a long ways to go. There's not many people that you see committing these heinous crimes that don't have a history of mental illness, that have been allowed to walk around the streets next to you, your neighbors, where you shop, where you work. So to identify them, get them the help that they need, and it's not a short process. That's what's difficult. There is no panacea magic pill that works. But there are options that I'm willing to embrace. Any new options, anything that might work, to reduce inmate recidivism, particularly when it comes to mental health, is paramount to the success of the jail and the sheriff's office. Thank you.
Well, folks, this is a question that's actually come up several times, and other people have asked me this, and the first time it was asked me, I was a little taken back. So I did a little research on what goes on. And I think, you asked me earlier, what would I do on my first day? That would be one of the things I'd do on my first day. I would take a look at what we're doing, and then I would assemble a group of businessmen and people that understand it, that work in the jail, and we would get together and understand, we got to come up with a solution. And you know what? We would come down and visit Harris County, and we'll go to other places like LA County Jail, to Nevada, and visit the Clark County Jail, and look at all these other places that are having the same issues that we're having. Study what they do right and what they do wrong, and see if we can implement that as quickly as possible so that we don't have that problem, so that we're not being dinged by the state of Texas on what we're doing and how we're not getting meds to our mental health patients, and why certain people aren't getting access to their relatives when they're in jail. So what we need to do is look at other jails that are working well, try to implement things that are being done right, and learn from other folks. Not just try to contain this all inside Montgomery County. Find out what is done right. Don't reinvent the wheel. Just take somebody else's great idea and let's implement it. Thank you.
We're out of time, so I guess this is an opportunity for a rebuttal. A couple other programs that we currently have is a MAC court, which is a mental health court that works to divert our inmates. So when they come in, there's a person that assesses their mental health status to see if they would be eligible for a PR bond or something to get them out. So that has worked well to divert inmates from the jail population, so we can, one, reduce overcrowding and get them out and get them the help that they need, because a lot of the crimes that they committed are petty, and if they don't have an assaultive history, having them on the street is not a danger to the other citizens. So that's a big move that we've made. And the MAC court was just funded once again this court cycle, so we're not diverting a tremendous amount of inmates, but if you can get one diverted where he doesn't recidivate and come back and take up that jail space, that's really, really important. Thank you.
All right. Do you support the legalization of marijuana in any capacity? Explain your answer.
No. But seriously, we're looking at what's happening right now in Colorado, and it's not going well for them. And we're so again, let's study someone who did it before us, and they're not doing well. It's not working out like they want to. The legalization of marijuana doesn't help us. It doesn't lead us down the path. Everyone says, well, it'll make the state more money. Well, they're finding out that they're still doing illegal sales of marijuana there in the state of Colorado, so it didn't change any of that. All it did was give people the legal right to smoke marijuana and then still go out and try to operate a motor vehicle. And it makes it more difficult for us in law enforcement to figure out who's doing it. And they're coming up with new methods now that you can test someone who's been smoking marijuana. But now that gives us, you talk about the budget, now we're going back out there trying to get more money to get more equipment so that we can figure out who's driving intoxicated on marijuana. So it really is just a domino effect on this legalization. I don't think it helps us out in the criminal justice system either. So if you want to decriminalize it and make it a ticket, I still think that doesn't give enough penalty to going out and selling it. And unfortunately right now, the school district in which I am the chief has an extremely large problem with the amount of kids getting synthetic marijuana. So everyone is going to be very surprised and disappointed if we make that an issue. I don't think that that's something that we should legalize at all.
Nor do I. I don't advocate for the legalization of marijuana. I see no benefit to it. I see it as a dangerous substance that does need to continue to be regulated. It's often used by the youth. Just like truancy isn't an issue for adults as they age out of school, marijuana is mostly a drug of the youth, and so that's where we mostly deal with it. So we now have the opportunity, with the new legislative cycle, to cite and release which is an advantage with our jail population because we're bringing people in for a joint, which we want them to face criminal penalties, but I don't agree that they need to be incarcerated overnight, stressed out, all the expenses that come along with them becoming an inmate. Not to mention, it's introducing really young people into the criminal justice system with a Class B misdemeanor. So that is a gateway that gets them into the system that makes it very difficult for them moving forward to get good employment. So we want to address it at the youngest age as possible. Synthetic marijuana is our bane right now. That's the one that's very difficult because it's sold in bright light stores. You can go into a convenience store and buy any number of brands, and this stuff is totally unregulated. What it is, if you're not familiar with it, it's nothing to do with marijuana. It's a substance, a tea, an herb, mostly manufactured across seas, and then there's chemicals that are put into it. Although the packaging may be consistent, the product when tested is not consistent at all. So you may have one batch with a low grade of chemical, another batch with 10 times that amount of chemical in the same package or in the package right next to it. So kids don't know how to use it. So we're seeing a huge increase in overdoses. We've been working with Dr. Escott, with the Director of Public Health, to start to address this. We're going to be addressing it with the District Attorney's Office as well. And my fear is not the old school marijuana, it's the new synthetic marijuana as we move forward. Thank you.
All right. Do you support the use of drones? If not, why? If so, explain how and under what circumstances would they be used?
The Sheriff's Office does have a drone. We use it for, well, we don't really use it much right now, but when we do deploy it, it's going to be for issues such as the wildfire that we had. I was the incident commander for the huge wildfires that we had in Magnolia. There's some Magnolia residents in here. That was a traumatic event for that part of the community in 2011. So we had to go up in helicopters, we had to go up in airplanes. The smoke was a huge problem for the aircraft, not to mention the expense to operate. So I would advocate use of the drone in situations such as that, to scope out the landscape, to see where the hot spots are, to help the fire department and the sheriff's office with traffic control and dealing with the issues moving forward with that disaster. I would also support it in search and rescue situations. So if a person is lost in the national forest, which is something that happens very routinely, hikers will get into the woods and they'll run out of water or they won't be adequately prepared. They'll lose their cell phone service and they'll be missing for dangerously long periods of times and really adverse weather conditions at times, whether it's extreme heat or cold, whichever it may be. So that would be a good opportunity to go up over the treetops and look down and try to find a search and rescue victim. I would not advocate using the drone in any situation that violates your Fourth Amendment. I don't believe in doing any routine surveillance, any proactive surveillance. It would only be directed as needed in a situation, mostly for search and rescue and those type of situations. The problem we have is, I don't believe is going to be your local sheriff's office using the drone. It's the number of privately owned drones that we're having to deal with. Just saw one go onto the U.S. Open court just the other day. Somebody was flying it around and put it right into the court. They could have, could have been hanging bombs on that thing or whatever. So the private use of drones and somewhat the commercial use of drones is what really terrifies me moving forward. It's not your local sheriff's office. Thank you.
Real quickly, I don't believe that the drone should be used in a capacity where we should be looking for someone on a search warrant or an arrest warrant. The drone is there for exactly what Brand said, public safety in a situation where we're doing search and rescue, and that's about it. Maybe on a wildfire, but that's a search and rescue situation also. So other than that, the drone should be parked, it should be supervised, it should be known to the public when it's going to come out and when it's going to be used. And simple as letting the media know, we're going to take the drone out and we're going to fly it today, and this is the area that we're going to fly it in. But that's the only time that I think that the sheriff's office should operate it in life and death situations where we need to use it to find a lost person. Other than that, that's it. Thank you.
As sheriff, how will you ensure the fair and legal treatment of your county's residents? Be specific.
Be specific. The fair and legal treatment of our county residents. That has to do with properly training over and over again your officers and your employees in how we take care of business. And it's very simple. I was an agent assigned to our James J. Raleigh Training Center. I was there for 3.5 years. I was the senior instructor that instructed in use of force to not just the new agents coming through, but all the ones that had to come through for what we call force-shift training. So if you were there and you had 12 or 13 years on the job, you had to come in and sit and listen to me do an hour and a half on use of force. Also, we would bring in our attorneys and they would talk about the Fourth Amendment and the Second Amendment and having to deal with doing the job properly. So how that happens is really simple. You don't go 3.5, 4 years, 5 years with never seeing the inside of the training division. You're going to be there once a quarter. And we're going to set up a program where you are outlined on which courses you're taking, and you may repeat it over and over again, but we're going to drill it into your head that you understand as soon as you make that traffic stop, as soon as you go to that house and knock on that door, that you're not without probable cause asking to search a vehicle, asking to come in and search a house. You get to that door and you think, well, I could just go in this door and see if I can find that evidence because I think it's in there. But you don't have probable cause to know so. You're going to walk away. You can say, well, we're just going to come back another day when we have better PC to get in this house and we get a search warrant that's signed by a judge. So that's what I plan to do, is use training, education for the employees to make sure that they understand where they're going to cross the line and that they don't. Thank you.
Carl, can you repeat that question? I don't think I heard it right. Don't be jumping ahead on me now.
As sheriff, how will you ensure the fair and legal treatment of your county's residents? Be specific.
Okay, so I guess we're addressing this as a use of force issue on our citizenry. We train every day. There are outliers that don't apply their training or do the wrong thing. And we work really hard to root those people out of our department. We start off by rooting them out in the application process. And a lot of the times, if they do make it into the department, the cream rises to the top, but in this case, the bad apple rises to the top, and we weed them out as quickly as possible. I don't hesitate to fire and remove somebody that doesn't fit our department philosophy. I'm the training director for the Sheriff's Office and have been since 2010, and I work with Lieutenant Ken Culbreth on a daily basis to ensure that use of force is taught, use of force is applied, and use of force is carried out properly to protect your individual liberties and rights. We have brought in enhanced training, not only with firearms, but also with hand-to-hand combatives, so the officers know what it's like to get hit. We have people that come to the Sheriff's Office that come to be a police officer that have never been hit before. They've been in outside agencies. That's why we hit them with tasers, so they know what it feels like. That is a high-level use of force. You ever get hit with pepper spray, otherwise known as mace, you know the pain that it inflicts. And you also know that you may take a ride on that taser and get tased yourself, or you may get that spray in your eyes yourself. So we continually train to make sure that our deputies are the best that are out there. We don't have any issues with the community because we work so closely with them. We are straight up, we file our uses of force, we document everything in an electronic format, so we know exactly what force has been used, how it's been used, and what situations it's been used, so we can ensure that excessive force is rooted out of the department at all costs. Thank you.
Okay, Rand, this one's going to be for you to begin. What is your opinion of the unwritten law that law enforcement officers do not ticket or arrest other law enforcement officers for infractions of the law?
That's pretty old school stuff there. That doesn't apply like it used to. The younger generations that are in the law enforcement ranks certainly don't respect that like it was in, air quotes, the good old days. The days of, flipping the badge out and I'm the so-and-so department, you don't write me a ticket, Those days are long gone. We train the deputy that they know whether they're going to issue a citation or a warning as they approach the vehicle. So before they get there, they already have their mind made up. Absence of any excuse, because that's part of the 7-step violator contact, is to find out what the reason for their emergency is if they're going fast. And the reason for that emergency can't be because I wanted to go fast and I'm a cop. That's not very well respected. The times changed in 2002 when we got racial profiling legislation that mandated that all agencies, unless they want to do Tier 2 racial profiling data, which nobody does, get video cameras in their cars. So the Sheriff's Office has been a 100% video department since somewhere around 2002, 2003. And we maintain that video, and it's been enhanced to where they use it for much more than traffic stops. They use it for evidence collection on scenes, etc. But the video system really changed that because the officer's behavior is watched. It's monitored by their supervisors. It's monitored by us all the way up through the chain of command. So supervisors are mandated to go in and do spot checks, and if they see issues such as that, then they're to be addressed and reflected on evaluations. But the culture has changed. I think that unwritten rule is unwritten and not being applied in a lot of situations, and I'm a firm believer that the law is equal and applies to all. Thank you.
Well, I'm the chief of police of the city of Montgomery. Unfortunately, obviously not everyone thinks that way. I get a lot of phone calls, don't I? I'll talk to my sergeant and my officer in the back. Oh, your guy gave my guy a ticket the other day. So it still is out there. People still expect it. But the thing that I think has stopped most of that has been the video in the car. Each officer makes his or her determination of whether that person receives a warning or a ticket at that place. I do not second guess my officers at all. I make whatever they decide on that scene, unless we go back and they violated policy or we see something wrong, we'll discuss it with them. That's how a ticket stands. And I get lots of phone calls in 1 week at a time about how many tickets have been issued to different people, brothers and sisters and mothers and mother-in-laws from all over the place. But we don't let that happen anymore. So it just continues. People expect it, but we don't let it happen. But it is a problem. It's always been a problem, that occupational problem that we have with that. So we address it, we take care of it, and we just move on. Thank you.
All right, Jim, this one's yours. What is your plan to improve the deplorable response time for investigation of nonviolent crimes in the county?
I didn't know that was a question. Deplorable response time for nonviolent crimes in the county.
I didn't write it.
Okay. I don't know, I'd have to beg to differ with that. I think that the men and women out there are working real hard. I know that the response times are difficult, and we've already addressed this with manpower. We talked about how much money, do we need to increase the budget? Well, if we want to get rid of deplorable response times, the only way to do it is to put the right amount of people on the job. And unfortunately, we have to then go to Commissioner's Court and ask for money to get the right amount of people, and then we got to train them to get them out there. So, just by getting a grant for the next 25 or 30 officers doesn't make it happen overnight. It does take time, but if we can get trained officers quickly, get them up to speed with the system that they have at the Sheriff's Office and get them out, that is about the best way you're going to fight horrible response times on nonviolent crimes. The other thing is that you need to give some responsibility to that deputy or officer on the street to go ahead and do the follow-up real quick, to come out there the next day and talk to the reportee and see if there's any additional information, and not let it sit for 3 and 4 and 5 days. So that response time is reflective on the number of people that you have that can do the job, and also on their ability not to be overloaded with calls and be able to get out there and do that investigation. If they're continually running back and forth and trying to have 3 and 4 calls holding on their dispatcher, then they can't get back out to do what they need to do. So what we need to do is lighten that load on them a little bit, Because that's when we get out and start doing proactive policing, is when that load is lightened. The officer isn't running from call to call, but he is looking for that problem. He's trying to make contact with someone that's going to be out there trying to commit that theft or that, the theft of metal or anything else. And one of our officers did that the other day. He rode by and looked up, and there was a truck parked in the wrong spot. He had time to go investigate it, and sure enough, he arrested 3 people for theft of metal, and they had it all in the back of their truck. So manpower is the issue, and that's about the only way you're going to get to solve this. Thank you.
Yeah, you have to look at first understand how dispatch calls work. They get prioritized. They come in either on 911 or through non-emergency lines at the sheriff's office. All of our dispatchers and call takers both take the calls, process the calls, and then dispatch them out to the officers through their computers and over the radio. So the prioritization determines the response level. So if you've got a serious in-progress call, then obviously that's a higher priority call that would determine you're running lights and sirens, such as an assault in progress. Somebody needs help. That means get there as quickly as you can. So we do that, and we have a pretty good response time when it comes to those type of calls. Now, as you trickle down, it goes all the way down from past calls to just regular service calls, just somebody needing information or has a question. So we try to prioritize those and address those as the needs arise. Now, it's not uncommon for a deputy to be driving to, for example, a burglary past. You left on Friday for the weekend, you came home Sunday after the weekend was over and found that your garage had been broken into or something like that, and somebody stole a bicycle. So if the officer's en route to your call and then a higher priority call comes in, then obviously he's going to be pulled off of that and have to respond to those higher priority calls, thus making their response time to the nonviolent, especially the property crimes, suffer. But there is, other than the convenience of the citizenry, which we view you as our customers and we know this is important, but we have to deal with those life-saving issues first. Those are our top priority. So we'll get to you. We'll always work with you. We try to have supervisors call and try to explain the situation. But when you're just doing a data analysis, at times it does look like the responses are very protracted and unnecessary until you look at it and you understand the specific situations, which is, Captain, something I deal with on a daily basis. Thank you.
All right, I've been instructed that this is going to be the final question, and I think this is a very, very important question. Will each of you sign an agreement not to personally attack your opponent if asked to do so?
Absolutely. If we would get away from personal attacks and keep that from happening, I would be all for that. I feel that I've run my campaign very above board. No personal attacks have come from me, and I don't plan to use that as methodology moving forward through this. I have seen websites that are out there that are run by my opponent's campaign that are attacking, that are saying some really negative things. There was some, a very strange picture that was posted by someone that's in attendance here tonight at the East Montgomery County Fair, and then immediately posted on a website that's obviously run by my opponent. So I'm very concerned about some of the happenings that's coming from his camp, and I would love to hear him make that same pledge that no nastiness and personal attacks and attacks on our families and attacks on those that support us, because that's not what this is about. We're looking for a law enforcement job. It's a political process to get it, but we're cops. We're rule followers. And I like to think that we're pretty good people. So I'd like to see that we act like adults and do what's right. And if my mom is happy with what I'm doing, then obviously I'm doing something right. So I want to keep it that way, and I'd like for my opponent to abide by those same principles as well. Thank you.
Well, to address that, that is not my website, nor is it one that I have authorized. I don't know who put that picture up there. All I know is that it was not a picture of you. So I made sure that that kind of thing doesn't happen. And yes, I'll sign that pledge if that need be. I don't plan to attack my opponent in any way, shape, or form as far as in any kind of personal situation. We may talk about our records to each other back and forth in public. I don't mind doing that. But other than that, our families are completely out of bounds. And I would never speak badly of his family or anyone in it. So, yes, I would sign that.
So, the MoCo Election Watch is not your webpage, and you're not affiliated with that in any way, the Facebook page. No affiliation whatsoever. Okay. Thank you.
I think that concludes at least my asking questions. So,
We have 5 minutes each to close. Whoever opens first
there you go.
goes last.
Then I think we started with the first question, so ran 5 minutes. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. This is our first candidate forum. We have a very small one back in at the Woodlands Republican, I think. But this is obviously a much larger forum, and I'm just really happy to see that the attendance that we have here tonight it's overwhelming. That our community wants to come out and give us the support that we're getting from you all. So that means a lot. Thank you for your involvement and for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come here and speak tonight. But I'm here to tell you that as the experienced person with the Sheriff's Office, I have the right experience leading this department moving forward. The Sheriff's Office is my second home. My family has been tremendously supportive in this process, because there's no better way to take care of your family than to run the largest sheriff's office, or run the sheriff's office in one of the largest counties in the state of Texas. It ensures our personal safety. It ensures the personal safety of our residents in our neighborhoods, our businesses, and the surrounding areas and the roads that we travel. So I love this department. I love what we're doing. I think we're moving in the right direction and have been for many years. Sheriff Gage has built an extremely strong foundation that I have the privilege of leveraging that as we move forward. Sheriff Gage and I have some different ideas. I mean, I've learned from the man, I've learned from the department, I've learned from my superiors over the years. I started as a line level patrol deputy and worked my way up. I did the job as a patrolman. Then the department had the faith in me to promote me to corporal, which meant that I was a field training officer. So the department had the faith in me to say that we want you to train those that are coming into this business. And then the department had the faith in me to promote me to sergeant, which meant that I was the first line supervisor coordinating shifts throughout the county and making sure that the deputies did the job that they were charged to do and do it right. Then the department had the faith in me to promote me to lieutenant. And as lieutenant, I was the first public information office director for the sheriff's office. Never been done before. Sheriff Williams said, go find a school, figure out how to do it. So I did. I started the first website for the sheriff's office as a brand new lieutenant. And then Sheriff Gage came in, and I got to move to patrol, which was always my love. So I was a patrol lieutenant in District 1 for a year, working for Captain Llewellyn at the time, who's in the audience. And then I was able to laterally transfer, not exactly my dream job, but it turned out to be one of the most rewarding jobs that I ever had, because I learned so much, was in the Internal Affairs Unit. I found that it was paramount to find those that are doing wrongs within our department and remove them, because we have a very honorable profession, and only those with honor can serve within our department. So I did that for a few years, and then Sheriff Gage had the confidence to bring me into the command staff. That's when I became the captain over the patrol division. And as captain, I'm a full division manager. I manage my own budget. I oversee managers who oversee supervisors, who oversee trainers, who oversee deputies. He's also had the faith in me to oversee some of our specialized units, such as the motorcycle traffic unit. He named me training director in 2010, a position I've proudly held ever since then. I also had the opportunity to serve as the jail captain. Not one of the most glorious commands in the sheriff's office, but as the sheriff always says, it's his biggest liability. And when I went back there to the jail, I found a great group of young men and women that were doing a great job, and it wasn't being recognized like it should. So we worked with them to improve their professionalism, improve the efficiencies of their job, and make them better at what they do on a day in and day out basis. So as your sheriff, I'm ready. I went back to school and got my master's degree in preparation for this. I went to Quantico, Virginia, and trained with the FBI National Academy to get the management training that I needed to become the sheriff of Montgomery County. I went to the state version of the National Academy, which is the Leadership Command College in Huntsville, Texas. And I went through all 12 weeks of that program to get the command experience. I've got emergency management experience. I've served as an emergency management coordinator for numerous events, including the wildfires that I mentioned earlier, Hurricane Ike, and many others that we prepared for that turned out not to be the disasters that we thought they would be. So with that, I want to let you know that I'm prepared, I've got the experience, and I'm ready to get the ground running and take over the reins on day one. Thank you.
I just want to talk about history a little bit, history of our country and the history of our great state. It started with volunteerism when, in the 1700s, when General Washington needed an army, he went to the people. He asked the people to say, I'll stand up, I'll fight for my family, I'll defend my country, which really wasn't even a country, but just their state. The state of Texas did the exact same thing. The Alamo was full of volunteers from all over the United States at the time. I started my career in law enforcement as a volunteer. I got paid nothing to do this job, but I loved it. I was out there as often as I can, to the point where we went out and got our own car, our own reserve car, so we could ride as often as we possibly could. And there's some guys in the audience here that remember back in those days. I would work every weekend I could. I would work during the week, and then when I got laid off from my engineering position, I was working 40 hours a week for free for the state of Texas and for the citizens of Montgomery County. And sometimes in law enforcement, and only in law enforcement do I ever see this, is that we look down on the reserve position as just a reserve. But you never hear someone say that about a volunteer fireman that goes out and puts out a fire. You never hear them say that about a volunteer at the hospital or a volunteer at your local school that helps the teachers. They go in every day. They don't say, oh, that's just a volunteer, don't worry about that. But we hear it, law enforcement is the only place. In my department, I have 6 reserves that work for us, and they're all great men. They do a good job. They come in and work for free. So from there, from that volunteerism, I was able to get a job with the United States Secret Service. It was a great honor. I went to the Secret Service Academy in 1986 and walked around Washington, D.C. thinking, wow, this is really cool. You know, I mean, you have to admit, you get into the mat room and you sit there and you look at the Secret Service star on the mat and you just think, I got here finally. 3.5 years of waiting for this job. But I was able to work through the different squads there. I got back to the Houston field office. I worked in fraud and counterfeit, and I worked with many of the officers up here because a lot of the cases came back here. And from there, I was sent to former President Bush's detail in Houston, and then from there to the President's detail in Washington, where I had the honor of being asked to be a counter-assault team agent, which will take me a whole lot longer than the 2 minutes I have left to explain it. But in those days, I was able to meet great people like Colonel McCabe that's sitting over here, who was then the commander of Delta at the time, and to learn from them about leadership and how to deal with things. And when you have a crisis and you're the guy on the front line, how to make that right decision. When you're geared up and you're expected to do the job, when you go through that door that first day and you're the front guy going in the door during a raid, you know what to do. You know what your job is. And if you're the commander at the back of the stack, you also know what your job is for your men and what you're going to do. I was trained highly by the United States government to do a job, to take care of business. And I now bring that to my department. And I plan to bring that to the sheriff's office. Is we're going to get the job done and we're going to do it right. But we're going to do it so that our men and women have ownership of what they do. They will go to work every day proud to say, you know what, I'm working for the sheriff's department. And we're going to make this the best sheriff's department in the state of Texas. It's going to be so good that people are going to want to come here. They're going to quit their other jobs to say, you know, we're going to go work for Montgomery County because that's the place to go. They have the equipment, they have the training, they have the knowledge to get the job done. They're out there doing what they need to do for their citizens. That's why I think that I have the best training and knowledge to get this job done. Because it's not only in the private sector that I have knowledge. I have it from the government, I have it here locally, and then I started it here, so I'm back to do the job that I first went to leave to go do. To be the best that I can be, to do the best job that you can do, to be trained by the best, to understand what your limitations are and what you can do to get the job done. That's what it's all about. It's not about calling each other names or doing any of that. It's about trying to get the best person into this job so that the county can benefit, so that the citizens can benefit. Thank you very much for your time.